go over some of the things that you were interested in, like why you submitted. And I think it's such an interesting thing to focus on the act of creativity itself and getting stuck. And I love it. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for offering the platform.
Yay.
Just put a microphone in front of me, so let's talk.
All right. So welcome to In the Act. It's a radio program on process in the creative life. Creativity does not just start and stop with artists. We all make aesthetic and guiding decisions. Our aim is to talk through the process and investigate how we choose to express ourselves and to live creatively. We're connecting with people about their lives. This is the subject of our show. Broadcasting from Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Mead Community Radio, I am Erica Hunsinger, and this is In the Act. Today's guest on In the Act is Jill Brotz.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So glad you're here.
I am very glad to be here. It's an interesting place to be.
Woo, library.
Yeah. What's going to happen in the next hour? I don't know.
Well, that's good. That's sort of, part of this it tends to be a little alinear, if that's a word. And I think when we were talking about creativity, it because it draws from so many different places that it's not linear. So we lose our train of thought sometimes and other things. So, but I wanted to focus because you describe yourself as a creative person living a creative life.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yes. Yeah, I figured I had to answer that question when I post it. So what that means to me is I have freedom to express myself.
Yeah.
Art is you can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, and there are certain limitations. I think that's what defines it, perhaps. You have freedom, but certain limitations. And so I started thinking about that, and what does that mean? And so I have an instinct to create, I have the power to create, and I have the discipline to create.
Yeah.
And so then when you add all those three together, creation happens.
Right, for you, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's different for everybody. But for me, I'm not a professional artist. I don't sell artwork to make a living. But I live a creative life because I am making things, and we can go into the history of it, but yes, I have a degree in art. I went through that whole process. And so it's a part of me. It's a part of my drive as far as who I am as a person and where I fit in with this world. And so it's been just a long journey of discovering what is my creative drive.
Sure.
And so I said that I went from being photorealism painting from a very realistic way, which is like my whole mother's side of the family. Like there's just amazing painters. My grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, they all can just paint so perfectly, and it's in the genes.
Sure.
I guess I don't know.
Nature,
how
nurture.
That works. That whole family is very artistic. Every single one of them is in some way or another.
Yeah. How
but
cool.
then I just grew up with that. So I had that ability, and I can do that. But then just fast forward, I'm now almost turning 40, just where I've come is then I'm more in a minimalist style now, where I'm cutting blocks and just coloring them.
Cool.
So I'm
cutting like
blocks.
actual wooden blocks.
Yeah.
And then
literally
printing.
Like I redid my house, so I refloored it, and it's all the extra flooring I have.
Nice.
And it's just I'm creating these grids of color, and I really like it because I'm just cutting squares and aligning them and lining them up, and it's a color exercise.
Sure.
So it's very satisfying and it's simple.
Yeah, and it's where you're living. Like your feet are, it's underneath your feet then.
It
right?
gets more spiritual then, if you want to get into that, where
Sure.
I'm using this wood that's in my house and
Right.
I'm reusing material.
Right.
That
So
I don't know
there's
what else I would do
recycling.
with it. Because that whole series that I'm working on right now there's also things that I've salvaged from factories.
Okay.
So it's called The City, and it's just using material that would be discarded.
Love that.
Industrial waste revolution is kind of what I call it.
Sure.
So yeah, and it's just a color theory exercise that I had the material and I
Right.
had the idea, and they all came together. Like the idea came a long time ago, and now I suddenly had the material and just the interest and wanting to create art again because I let it go for quite a while.
Got ya. All right. Yeah.
Which is what
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. But I was just going to say, which is what I was going to get into as my main point, which is balancing work life with creativity
Yeah.
and wanting to do so many different things and finding
Right.
a focus.
Right. And interestingly, that the creative process for you was what's in front of me and having the materials lead you, and then attaching that to a previous creative stimulus from the past. And so those things come together. And so when we talk about creativity in terms of like timelines, or, that those pieces came together from years apart and merged together to create this project is a really interesting timeline on it as well as project, I think.
Yeah, it's actually been kind of profound for me because I'm drawing upon basically ideas I had coming out of college.
Yeah.
And then I went on a long tangent of going into other things, which I'm still doing
Yeah.
in my daily life. But then I suddenly connected with something I'd been doing with wood back in college, and an idea it just never went anywhere and just sat in my back pocket. And that's
Right.
the thing. When you have so many ideas and you're creative and you're inspired by everything around you, you just have to find your drive, find what really speaks to you,
Sure.
and focus on that rather than trying to force things.
Sure.
Because, sometimes you can get into so many different things and you have to prioritize it.
Right. And the priority for so many people is like the work comes first because we need to satisfy our basic needs. And then so art in whatever form, whatever creative outlet you have, comes second many times. And so trying to find that combination. So can you talk a little bit for yourself about, you said that you have a lot of different interests, and then to focus, what helps you focus? If we can just break it down to just the focus part.
Absolutely. There's a couple things. One is practicality.
Yeah.
So I like to make hot sauce. And
Yeah.
that's it's very fun. It ties into other things that I enjoy, which is growing plants. And
Cool.
Even art, because I would design my own labels.
Yeah.
I very much like it, but do I really want to invest in making a hot sauce company?
Right.
I could.
Sure.
Could I? Of course I could. I can do whatever I want to do, whatever I envision to happen. But,
It's the drive
you
component.
have to just say no
Yeah.
to that. But I'm still going to keep it in my life. I like to make hot sauce. In fact, I brought some
Nice.
for you.
Awesome.
So, that's a gift. I brought a couple bottles of my recent
Nice.
materials.
So having those things filter in then. So that's one focus.
Yeah.
And that's just then how you eat and how you live. Like you like gardening and like folding that in.
Where I like to give people the hot sauce and I like to do it, but I'm not even doing the farmer's market and things because I started to do that, it was really good.
Yeah.
It's a really nice experience. But I have to say no to that. You know, to a certain extent.
Sure.
I'm still exploring it. It could be there. It's something that I could. I developed it to a point, you know, where I have recipes and I have, you know, things that I bought and I know what's going on, but I'm not going to push forward and go past a certain limit.
And why not for you? Why isn't that right? How do you know it's not right?
It's a gut feeling.
Okay.
It's an instinct. And that's why I said instinct, power, discipline. So what is my instinct? What really drives me?
Right.
What does my gut tell me to do? And for some reason, I just started doing these blocks, and it's helping me. They're very soothing.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's tying into other things and working with wood.
Yeah. What do you think helps you overcome some of those when you feel blocked? You know, talking about blocks, I guess it's a funny little play on words, but what do you think helps you move through those spaces? Because that's one of the things that we're kind of wanting to focus on because I think there's so many people that have difficulty in trying to find, like, they know what their drive is. They know instinctively, like you, like what they love, what they want to move towards. But there's a block somewhere too. What helps you go through some of those things?
I would say I switch it up. So if I feel like I'm in a rut, I change my routine.
Ah, like how so? Can you explain a tiny bit or go
I
more
think
detail?
of it as inhaling and exhaling.
Sure.
So I would be an introspective versus extroverting.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, you can use that.
So inhaling, exhaling is how I thought about it. And so acting, not acting. So then I don't know if inhaling when I'm socializing. I'll go through periods where I'm not actually actively creating.
Sure.
I start to all of a sudden become very social and I want interaction and inspiration. People offer inspiration.
So that's the extroverted
constantly.
Point of it. And the introverted part is like the reflective part.
I think so.
Yeah. And that there's that balance for you.
Yeah, I struggle with that balance a little bit, which I think a lot of creative people probably do. They're a mix of extrovert and introvert. And I think that's a big part of it is that we need that introverted time to create. Sure. I isolate myself. And people don't always understand, but I need time to actually create what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then the extroverting is when I'm like, I need you, though, because you're inspiring me and you're making me feel alive.
Right. And we need people and
think.
Connect. Sure. Yeah. And we don't create in a bubble. I always say that. It's like even within those reflective periods of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess I usually create by myself in my own house with my own tools. But I would think working in studios around people.
Sure.
Would take you in other directions than you normally would.
Right.
So.
And you're interested in not just wood and hot sauce and gardening, but you have a whole host of activities and things that you like to create with. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I guess I haven't even talked about the writing. So I wrote down just kind of, so I'm a creative person. Well, what are my top 10 or top 8? Just write them down, if you're like me and you have a lot of different ideas and you think about it, you'll notice the ones at the top are probably the ones that are more important to you.
Sure.
So the one on the top of mine, which is writing. I guess I don't talk about it very much because it's writing. It's quiet.
Sure.
But yeah, writing poetry, which I like about it too, is absolute freedom. I can write down on that piece of paper whatever I want.
Right.
No one's stopping me.
Right.
I never want anyone to stop me.
Sure.
They don't have to listen or like it, but I hope they do. I try to.
Yeah.
But I can say, do, throw, splatter,
right.
rip, tear, anything.
Sure.
Anything I want.
I love that all those action words, too, can relate to not just words, but translate into physical material as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that just made me think of something crazy I'll say, is I used to have a smashing room, which is a room in a house where you throw bottles and you break them. And because I pictured a big, tower or a pile of broken things, and it kind of happened. But it was just, I don't know, a thing.
Yeah.
That happened.
And what state is it in now? Is it still there?
It was dismantled.
It was, yeah.
Because, it was just in a house,
Sure.
that, had a firm foundation.
That's a really unusual thing to have, is a smashing room in a house.
Me alone. There was other parties. And it was, there's smashing, places you can go to.
That's what I hear.
Appleton and things like that.
Right.
So it was kind of like that, but in private.
Sure.
Private. Yeah.
And what did that provide you with? Psychologically, what was that for you?
Because it was a release and I could see it afterwards. I could look at that. I like to look at the pile.
Yeah. So process and product.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's right? Yeah, I figured we'd come to some kind of conclusion. Can I write that down?
Sure.
First you have a process, and then you have a product. Okay. Next.
Maybe.
I don't know. So yeah, the inhaling and the exhaling has been a big thing with me.
Yeah.
Isolation versus not isolation.
Yeah.
Which it is confusing, and you just have to find a balance, I guess. I feel that when I'm creating, I really do have to isolate. I don't know why.
Yeah. Welcome back to In the Act. I'm Erica Hunsinger, and this is Jill Brotz that we're talking with today, and we're getting into some ideas about the act of creating and what is incorporated for you within that, and that's multidimensional outlets and process. And did you want to talk a little bit more about your writing?
Yeah, and we were just talking about, too, the whole process coming into a product, and that's the struggle, I guess, with somebody where I'm not a professional artist. I work a full-time job. I have that whole thing going on for me, and I still want to make things. And sometimes it takes years.
Yes.
So things come full circle. So then with writing, we're talking in 2015, I did a 30 poems in 30 days thing, which I went out and I was living in Colorado and just, I took upon this thing, which there was a couple years leading up to it, that led me into that direction. But I did it, and I still have those poems to this day, and it's 30, plus more, but
sure.
I have them, and I'm still reworking them, and I'm, typing them up and doing things with them and turning them into songs, and
oh, fantastic.
All it took was 30 days, and, even if it was just a little thing, you would gain momentum.
Absolutely.
And,
Right.
I mean, I didn't keep it up long, like past that, but
The act of like writing every day, a poem every day, you didn't keep up?
no.
Right.
I
But the act
did
of
it-
being actively involved with them still
Yeah.
runs through.
Well,
so
I
it's a
mean-
different sort of process, but still within the same process.
Yeah, they all were there, and then I never did anything with them really, and I don't know, I'm slowly making them more beautiful, I guess.
Sure.
And I'm typing them up. Like I have this old typewriter that I type them on, and I want to make them do a book.
Fantastic.
But it's my expression of my life and what it's come to. I
Right.
live a creative life, so I'm trying to put something down physically
Right.
of what's happening
Sure.
through my perception.
Absolutely. And that's a really interesting transformation of like it was a big risk to go to Colorado and spend the time to focus on writing for 30 days in these poems. And now you have these 30 poems. And then in the process of transforming them into and taking care of them, like supporting them by typing them up and
I could have lost them.
turning
just
them into songs.
computer fritzed. Yeah.
I love it. Do you have any with you today?
I do. As a matter of fact, I did. I brought some. But then, so do you want me to read one?
You can, yes, whatever
Okay.
you'd like to do.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Oh, there's one right here. Okay. Well, I will. I mean, they are meant to be read, I think. I think my poems are more sound-based.
And what do you mean by that? That they're more sound based?
I don't know. I've always struggled with putting them down on the actual piece of paper.
Interesting.
So then every time I read them out loud, I want to change it. So I never can
Sure.
settle on one way of it being on the paper.
Right.
It drives me nuts. So right here, which you can see Erica in front of me, but nobody else. John over here, you can see I've typed them onto my 1956 typewriter on a piece of paper here.
They look
Kind of
really
cool.
beautiful.
It sounds cool when you type them.
Yeah.
Anyways, this poem is the first one I picked up out of the packet. It's a manila folder filled with the ones I've made, the 30 poems. Number 1, it's called Green Grows. Creaking fingers scrape across the black earth. Glowing seeds are pushed inside. The sun broils and broils across and across the bright blue sky. The wind speaks up, whispering and shivering through tall green grass. The rains come in, laying their metallic faces upon the screaming ground. The little green listens and drinks. The sun and rain take turns, skipping and skipping across and across the bright blue sky. The little green listens and plays, eating the sun and drinking the rain. Green grows.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
I don't know.
And I love how you read it too with this pacing and
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just that's sort of how I write. I hear it in my head. That actually is the 30 days with poems. It was sort of surreal because they come to me like a dream, which I think a lot of art, it's inspired. It's literally inhaling and inspired means you're inhaling. That literally is what it means.
Oh.
Inhaling. It's,
Yeah.
So you are being something, you're taking it in,
Right.
putting it out.
And I felt like it was a really inspired moment when you were reading that as well.
Yeah.
Like
well,
you seems like you've had practice doing that.
Well, you have to go into the zone. I mean, you really do.
Have you read your poems at other places?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've done them, at open mics and things like that. Or,
Okay.
I was Duluth Public Radio, they did this thing called The Beat.
Right.
And every morning they would play a poem. And so I had a couple of mine recorded. So I sent them in and they played them. And you got paid, which was nice.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Professionally,
Right.
paid.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about the you writing and being in this moment of trying to produce these poems, can you walk us through like a sort of a detailed way in which you find or gather or glean that inspiration or get in tune with how to write? Like, do you sleep late and wake up early? Do you prefer writing in the daytime or nighttime or outside, inside, on the ground? Like, what are some things that speak to you about how and when or where you make?
Yeah, definitely. With that experience, I prepared myself for it. There was, several months of thinking about it, and not in the type of way where I was writing down what I was going to write about.
Right.
I just knew that I was feeling the urge.
Right.
And what was happening in my life set me up for it as well, so I can just, thank the universe,
Sure.
for that. But I will think about it, and then I went out there with a home setting that was conducive to it. So living outside of the city, ideally not having a job for a month, not having anything else.
Right.
And no other obligations at all.
Right.
And yes, I do think that living around nature helps a lot. I mean, we can get even deeper into this, the years that led into it, which is I was living 3 years off the grid in a cabin in Minnesota, and I was writing as well. So this is all kind of culminating from that.
Wow.
So then I just decided, I don't know how I came up with the 30 poems in 30 days. I must have probably read it somewhere.
Sure.
And then what I did was, when I was there, is, you every day have a routine. Where, okay, I'm a coffee drinker. I get up in the morning. Yeah, I'm a morning person. I like it because nothing else is happening. It's very quiet. You can concentrate. Mm-hmm. It is an inspiring time of day for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. So then you get up, you do your routine, and you have your material set out. So I had my typewriter. I always just had it in a certain table, ready to go. And it was an enjoyable place to go with my coffee.
Sure.
I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
Is that you want to enjoy the place you're going into. So create a little space.
Yeah.
Have intention of where you're going.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm getting at is there's a very strong intention. For several months, you're thinking, I'm going to do this thing. And you got to be crazy enough to do it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Sure.
Lucky, crazy.
All the combined.
Yeah.
Have to align.
And so then, and I did it. Every day. It didn't take long. Sometimes it took a couple hours. Sometimes it only took a half hour. But, the important thing is that you're not forcing it. You just think, all right, well, I'm going to write a poem, and I just sort of open myself up. And all of a sudden I'll start hearing something in my ear. And it's got to be, that's why I say it's like a dream, because I literally hear them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's why the one I read before, that's maybe a little bit more constructed. But some of them, I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'll write it down. Fantastic. And so then I start writing it down, and later I reread it, and I think, well, that actually makes sense.
So you're kind of setting yourself up for receiving and quieting everything else and finding this pattern so that you can hear these other pieces. Like, I wasn't sure if you if you were writing cross-legged outside with a piece of paper or on your phone.
Well, I mean, sometimes editing.
Sure. But sitting down, like making a point to sit down at this table every day with your coffee, with this typewriter is a very specific way of creating.
Yeah, and that's why I think the isolation thing comes into it, because, I mean, who am I going to do that around? I mean,
Sure.
it's...
I mean, the act of creating mostly is an isolated thing. It is a that
work.
you do by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a few other things that, but a lot of the creative acts occur by yourself. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. Or even if there's people around, you're not actually working together to lay this paint on a canvas.
Right.
Or if you are, I mean, maybe we should do more of that.
Yeah, collaboration is a pretty interesting thing in whatever form or however it takes. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that. But
on the list.
Well, that gets kind of into, I guess, another thing where it's actually more on the bottom of my list, which is music, though, is where music, because my lyrics that I write, it starts to turn into my poems, I should say. They start to turn into lyrics. They start to turn into music because I'll start to just sort of sing-song them out loud, and I have a very much interest in music, but I have no training. I mean, I can't play anything.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So how does that all connect? And so that, like I said, that's on the bottom of my list, but it's also something that I feel I yearn for it.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you can express your emotions physically with the drums and the guitar and whatever.
Sure.
I mean, that's ultimate. They're lucky to have that.
Yeah. Do you think that your poems in that transformative place moving into music become more of what you're looking for?
Yeah. Yeah, because I have an example of one which I kind of have to set up for it musically.
Sure.
A little bit.
Okay. Ooh, exciting.
I hope I brought everything I needed for that. It has to do with, I might not have, I'm sorry. Maybe we should do that after there's another break, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to figure that one out.
That's okay.
But it just has to do with, I'm not a musician, and I would love to just someone be like, yeah, Jill, I sing, but they'll be like, yeah, you're great. Do you want to be the lead singer for our band? Like, we're all talented musicians, and we can make your dreams come true. That maybe. In Sheboygan, I really do. Like, there's people around.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Who knows what happens from this radio show.
But I am realistic. So I just keep, doing what the poem seems to be turning itself into.
Sure.
And yeah, it's just a couple years of progress, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I love this. It's this transformative process. Mm-hmm. So prior to then a poem that you're going to read or transform into music, would you be willing to read another poem from your...
Here, you know what?
Yeah.
I would, of course. I'm going to hand you this manila folder. Right?
Okay.
And you're going to pick one out.
Fantastic.
It's like a tarot reading.
It is. And so inside there are these 30 poems, and they're all printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of white
just paper,
cardstock paper or card paper, and they're folded in half, and then they're have this beautiful typewriter print on them, and the location of the print is towards the top of the paper. It's really quite beautiful. I am going to choose. Can I take it out of order?
Yeah.
Or do that? Is that okay?
Yeah. No,
okay,
there's
that's
no
what I
particular
have.
order.
I'm choosing that one.
I did kind of flop it.
So I chose one from the middle of the pile.
This is interesting you brought it up because I almost didn't bring these, and the only one I had was this one. So I would have probably...
Of course.
And I was like, I don't know about this. All right. This is called The Whirling Ethers.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a different sort of wind that twirled by as the moon opened and closed her tidal eye. Twice the lake's warm arms pulled the ethers down into a broiling mass that churned across the blue circuit. Just before the gray overtook the blue's divine course, our hero aimed his green lightning into the murky hills. His raw arm released a sizzling bolt to a place where wet eyes go black. The gray ethers whirled around and around the green hills, while our hero, he stood there wondering if his judgment was still burning. I have no idea what that means, but it's the something.
Right. Yeah. So so when you read it, I love that you're like,
but
tell me your idea.
I don't know. There's some sort of emotion, I think.
Yeah, right.
It's an expression of an emotion.
Sure.
That we can all relate to. I think that everyone else can see. It's a picture of maybe what they've felt. So everyone will have maybe a different feeling.
Absolutely.
But the picture is the same.
Right.
I don't know.
Like the picture of the emotion is if it's a narrative of a particular emotion. If you could identify an emotion to it, what would you attach to it?
Okay, let's get deep here now. I think there's some sort of, he's left wondering what happened. There's something traumatic almost that came into your life, and then all of a sudden you sit there wondering, I don't know what just happened here. I need to process this.
Right.
So
yeah, we've all had that, haven't we?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, all the time.
And the line of, and the wet eyes go black, is that it?
Yeah, that's where it gets very surreal, because I just see images and then you can decipher anything you want, really.
Sure.
There's the freedom, but you got eyes that go black you can't penetrate.
Right.
They're wet. I mean, because crying? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Why did that come out? That's kind of where my mind goes.
Yeah.
And that's how I think it does become sort of surreal or...
Right. And that's in terms of how you're talking about the creative process, almost like this, the words kind of move through you, and then not knowing, there's so many times when we create something and it's a product that we can see or read or be with, and then that reflective point, reflective moment of looking at what we've produced and questioning, what does that mean? How did that come out of me? Where does this relate in my life or world or to other people? And I love that that's part of your questioning. And I think that that's so much a part of the creative process within the wholeness of that.
I think, like I said, too, I'm grateful to have been blessed with the freedom just to do whatever I want. I mean, I'm not making art to answer to anybody, I guess, and that's the whole thing about it.
Right.
Is and that allows me to come to my own conclusions. I'm not steering myself in somebody else's direction.
Absolutely. Right.
And so, it is surprising when that happens, and it does take time.
Yeah. Welcome back to In the Act, a radio program on process and the creative life. I'm Erica Hunsinger, and we're talking today with Jill Brotz. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you for putting up with me.
Parking on the edge.
You're very kind to offer this platform.
So you were talking about, and I think we're really excited about hearing the transformation between the poetry into music or sound, because you talked about your poetry having a lot of sound to it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and as like me not being a trained musician, it has to do with the whole drive where, I've been like, okay, I could learn piano, and then I would start to, and, I'd be getting it, but then I'm like, I just don't want to. I don't want to. Right. So then I don't know. I sing and I make the lyrics, but I don't actually have any instruments to play with the music. And it takes it to a different level.
Sure.
When you have an instrument that you're playing along with singing. So, a cappella is great. You can have a whole band doing that. And that's a whole nother thing. But so what I would do is I started to recite the poem in public. So, I'd be going something like, I have to set up this song here of where it eventually turned into, where it's taken years to go from just me reciting it, in public to actually possibly turn it into a song. I don't have any drive to make a band or anything like that. I just like the fact that I have this one poem that it started out with me going, I bought a horse, I bought a pony. I started singing it. I bought a horse, I bought a pony. I bought a horse, I bought a pony. She gave me glass eyes, little bits of eyes, 3 fish swimming in the sea. So then for, however many years, I just did that. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I bought a horse, I bought a pony. I bought a horse, I bought a pony. And she gave me glass eyes, little bits of eyes, 3 fish swimming in the sea. And then I'd meet all these, guitarists and musicians who are like, oh, that's cool. Well, you're going into all these weird things, and I can't. It never turned into anything.
Yeah.
So then, and this is just a part of the journey, but I thought this was interesting, is that another local musician by the name of Drew Fredrickson, who he is, I guess you would call a creative fellow. He's just a staple of Sheboygan as a creative person.
Totally.
He has his whole Dicks with Licks thing, and so I was listening, and I started all of a sudden just singing along with one of them.
Oh.
And so I talked to him about this, and I said, hey, can I use this? So with this permission, I'm going to try to put this into the microphone. But so I went from, I bought a horse, I bought a pony, which is haunting. I bought a horse, I bought a pony, to I bought a horse and I bought a pony. Yes, I bought a horse, well, I bought a pony, and she gave me 3 fish a swimming in the sea. Well, oh, she gave me 3 fish. I lost it. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, it just the fact that this musician, who, he's just trained, obviously, very well.
Right.
And then I just started singing along. Simple thing.
Right.
I don't know. That's all I needed.
Right.
And that just kind of pushed the song into a different direction.
Yeah, push the poem into a different direction.
And the poem, because of the feeling that it gave me.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's so much of how, when we were talking about collaboration, that transformation from individual art product of your poem, having it spill into you spinning that thread of song, making it into more of a song for yourself through the years, and then hearing Drew's work and connecting it to that is a really, I mean, that's how creativity lands sometimes. Is that it's this, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I think music is one of the ultimate forms of creativity, because you are collaborating with other people.
Yeah.
So it becomes a living thing with others, and something I've never experienced.
Yeah, right. And what was it about his music that drew you to it?
I think he is an inspiring person to just observe, as far as drawing other people together and creating a feeling of community. And he's also educating people.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that, maybe he's posting these videos to show it to his students, but little does he know he has students that are all around him.
Absolutely.
So, just the fact that you have around you, as far as inspiring other people to be creative and how to be creative.
Right. Yeah.
So then, I wanted to know more. I was going to one of his fundraisers, so I wanted to know more about the music, and came across that and thought, oh, that works.
Sure.
What I'm going to do with it? No, I mean, I'm not like, yeah, Drew, let's have a band now, because no, I mean.
Right. It just is in part and in connection with your own personal process.
Kind of made me
finding
think,
all of these different materials and mediums
that
you respond to.
Or even going even further, because he is buying some artwork of mine, and so then you can kind of be like, well, I was like, well, trade?
Sure.
I don't know what that would all entail.
Yeah.
But as far as creativity is concerned, trading creativity.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Barter system is the best.
Yeah.
What are some artists or people, you were talking about Drew, as an inspiration and creative spark for you within that particular moment in song, poem, song. But who are some other artists or writers that you find inspiring?
That's a good question. Drew and all the others of Sheboygan, as I would call them, the creative fellows, are definitely an inspiration for sure, because there's a lot of them and there's a community there. It's out there. But beyond what you asked, I would say from my family.
Sure.
My grandmother was a very talented watercolor painter, and she just could paint, such beautiful things that to grow up around that, you can't help but be inspired to want to do that, especially if you have that talent.
Right.
If you realize, okay, I could do that.
Right.
So, she just she documented the things around her, which is, I think, more different than what I do. Or she was painting barns and houses and things like that.
Right.
But I think as far as harnessing your talent.
Sure.
And it being recognized.
Yeah.
I think the fact that I grew up around people that could paint so well, because, my aunt and my uncle, too, from, her son and daughter, they can paint things it's amazing how real it looks.
Love that.
So, it just, if you see that in your daughter, you're going to encourage it.
Absolutely. Right.
So, I think that, that could be, I was never pushed, but I was supported.
Yeah.
So, that could, I guess, serve as inspiration.
Absolutely, yeah. Community and family is such a wealth of not only relationships and support of self, because they know you and you know them so well, but also then that they're the pinnacle of inspiration for you. So it's like twofold of inspiring with community and relationships as well as the artistic and aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I could go on to one of my other tangents of things that I'm interested in, which would be more creativity and how I'm using it in the workplace.
Please do.
Which is,
I think that's really important.
It kind of ties into my other side of my family too, which is so. Yeah, it was a whole long journey where I always thought, I can't work a regular job. I'm an artist. I got to do this and I got to do that. And it just, I don't know, it wasn't clicking on that level. So then, I mean, getting a secure 40-hour-a-week job and all that is one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I mean, I do not regret that. And I've found my artistic path within it too. So it can be done, and I am very happy.
Great.
That is happening.
What are the pieces that...
So then, like, how it's connecting is, I don't know, but I work in quality right now, but then I'm going to start studying engineering. And so then I don't know how it's connected other than that I'm trying to solve problems somehow.
Yeah.
You know, and I coming up with solutions. So
totally.
I don't know, because me and the other quality person, we both are very artistic people. So we were talking about that. Like, why? I mean, is there a reason why? I mean, it's a very kind of, I don't know, you have to think outside the box, and you have to, I don't know, to be very focused on what you're doing and to have that drive, or what was I saying, the instinct, the drive. And
so is it quality control? Is that the...
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's sort of both. It's quality control is putting out the fires, and then you have quality assurance, which is preventing the fires.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
And I don't know how that's, like I said, that's at the bottom of my list right now, even though it's what I'm making my living off of. But I see how it can connect.
Absolutely.
Because I'm going into more a deeper role as far as engineering is concerned, is coming up with better solutions on how to run the company or run the production line, all these things.
Absolutely. Those are creative things to think about and talk about, negotiate and navigate. I think all of those things are part of that creative process. So whether or not you're using a brush and paint, or if you're designing how something's laid out in a factory, or quality assurance, or the line is all part of it. I think that we talked a lot earlier on about that, like, construction is a really creative act in itself, like following these plans, but also the craft that you have to learn to be able to do those things really well.
I mean, you can't just have the idea in your head. I mean, you can sit there and imagine beautiful artistic things, but they're not going to become a reality unless you actually do them and make them.
Sure.
That's the difference.
Right.
And same thing, like with my job. I mean, I can sit there and think of all these beautiful things I want to make, but then I have to, I'm not dealing with the paint on a canvas, but I'm dealing with a human being.
Absolutely.
And how they react to what you're trying.
And that's an art. Absolutely.
It's
the relationship and dialoguing, communicating is totally an art to try and figure out in whatever profession, whatever you're doing, relationship.
And then, we can get real philosophical, because art is really about communication, right? I mean, you are trying to communicate something.
Yeah.
And there's a multitude of ways of doing it.
Absolutely.
And we're given some ideas on how to do it. But, with me, I just got to these blocks because I think life gets so complicated. And like I said, I started out with, photorealism and just wanting to copy everything. And that can be very therapeutic as well.
Absolutely. Sure.
But I don't know. I just wanted to think
pull from lots of different directions.
Yeah. And then it started getting more complicated because you see how the squares all interrelate.
Sure.
And even within the simplicity, there's a lot of complexity.
Sure. When we're talking about blocks and you're talking about pacing and placement, I can't help but attach that process to how you're creating your poems in some ways, of like there are these blocks and placements and drawing from what's around you. And I was wondering, would you, as we're finishing up in the last few minutes, would you read another poem for us?
Okay, sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, you're probably right. They're sort of like little bricks or something. Well, I hope not. All right, I'll do this one then. I'm scared. No. All right. This one's called The Refugee. The sand beckons the boy from the surging salt. Warm, smooth, sparkling sand. His hand is on the warm sand. His eyes are dry from the salt. The sky is blue. The sand is warm. The water is cold and salty. Waves eat coats and shoes and parents. The sand is a bed. Bats come out at night to drink nectar from the blooming cacti. The sand is a cool bed. The boy washes his hair with sand. The salty surge is gone. North, south, east, and west is sand. His throat is blocked with sand. Warm, smooth, sparkling grains of broken rocks that splinter teeth. The salty surge is gone. Waves eat coats, but sand cracks teeth. The boy now lives in sand. That was kind of a sad one. I'm sorry.
That was powerful.
And that one's a little different because it actually is a true story in a way. Not actually how I described it, but it's about a person's emotional experience of coming or being a second generation. I don't know what you'd call it, but
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, though.
I mean, those are what I think that's where we're allowed to express ourselves. Art is a safe place to share some things that may not be comfortable, the dark or the ugly or the broken, as well as the beautiful and accepted.
Yeah, because you say it without saying it, I think is how I describe poetry. At least the way that I do it is you don't directly say what you're saying.
Sure. It's a metaphor.
And so then it resonates deeper.
Absolutely.
In the subconscious and the emotions.
Right.
But I mean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for reaching out to us and for being here today with us. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, would you share your contact information with us?
I mean, what kind of contact information do I want?
I have an Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah,
or
I am on Instagram.
Website?
You can start following me on Instagram under Jill Brotz. It's spelled Brotz.
Great.
So if you just put me in there, you'll find me there.
Excellent.
That's
are your
probably,
poems in there as well?
My poems actually are not, but after this, I should probably put them on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really should. So maybe I will.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Jill. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for this.
In the Act is produced in the studios at Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. More information on the web at meadpl.org.